I don't think the last few videos have really captured the experience east of Phoenix. First, let me start off by pointing out that when I left, right as I was walking out the door of the office, I was notified that a project that I thought was dead and I had committed to the year before, hadn't heard anything about it in 6 months, well, it was back on. And I probably could have gotten out of that project. However, it was going to be interesting. It was going to take me to Iraq, Nigeria, Switzerland, and I thought, well, this is probably interesting enough that I can stop for a few weeks, fly around the world, and then pick up right where I left off. Now, the problem with that was I might have to walk a few hundred miles to get to an airport to fly to Baghdad. Anyways, I left. I was walking, I was hustling, I didn't take time to linger anywhere for the first 28 days. I never stayed in the same spot twice until I got to Phoenix. Phoenix, somebody offered me a rental unit that they weren't using that was available for a week, and I stayed there for a few days. It was great. I finally had some flexibility. It was a good thing because I was just about to reroute my entire journey. At least the next section of it. I couch surfed there. I couch surfed with a good guy named Rick, who was a bicycle enthusiast who knew the roads very well, and he convinced me that I did not want to take the route that I had been planning since 2012, which was lined with campgrounds and had lots of good stops, a lot of uphill, but the problem with that road was it was a dirt road. It also wasn't a good road. It was very washboard, lots of up and down, and very narrow. So instead of going north, I went southeast on Highway 60. First day, not a problem. I had fixed another thing that Rick helped me out with is I fixed the brakes on my cart, which were largely ineffective at that point. I brought 3 Allen wrenches. It turns out I needed a 4th. He provided that for me, and it was a good thing because lots of downhill, lots of uphill coming my way too. First day, made 500 miles, got to my destination. Second day, I woke up. I was not feeling it. I'm tired. I don't feel ill, but man, I feel ill. As in, I need some sleep. Other items of note, this is a big one here. This flag, I finally figured out where to put it. It came with the cart. I don't know if it's supposed to go there, but it works. It's not going to fall down. Nobody is going to hit me at all because my flag is like 6-7 inches higher. That truck came out of nowhere. It's rather late. I woke up early, made myself a pot of chicken and rice, because that's good breakfast food. I've got 14 miles on the agenda today. However, it's all uphill. So, I'm gonna take it easy, I guess. I'm gonna stop for lunch in a little bit, coming into the town of Superior. And hopefully it'll be the best day ever. But I'll settle for just a good day. Well, let's do this. So maybe I didn't think this through. I'm at the Arboretum, which sounds great, but the only thing you can really do here is walk. So now I'm going to add 1.5 miles. This is the type of place I could stay for hours, because I like looking at stuff. I like reading plaques. I find these weird little things interesting. And everywhere I look, something is interesting. Remember, I'm the guy that loves Arbor Day. One thing I want to point out, it is probably 10 degrees cooler over here, and that is quite impressive. It's not the hottest of days, but that's what you get with these trees. A lot of eucalyptus, they take a lot of water, so they are actually providing a lot of evaporative cooling as the water goes up and out of the leaves, and that transaction just cools down the air quite a bit. So this is a delight. This is a delight. I've always wanted to terraform some land out in the middle of the desert somewhere, and they've done that. This is fascinating, but I think it's about time that I turn around and be on my way. That whole day, maybe I was waking up in the middle of the night. Maybe it was the uphill. Maybe it was just the fact I was feeling ill. Maybe I stopped too long at this arboretum. I did feel better once I started going. Man, I'm looking kind of majestic, aren't I? But when the sun was setting, I was nowhere close to getting to that campsite. Now, I don't think I mentioned this, but part of that route that I had to reroute on had a problem coming up, and it was a tunnel. It was a tunnel that was narrow, about 1,200 feet, narrow, no shoulder, and I was warned that this was not something I could do as a pedestrian. We used the old road. Old road, private property, no camping signs, no use after dusk. It was dusk. I went anyways, still under the impression that I could make it to the campsite. Went through a little tunnel. It was fun. It was neat. But when I got to the road again, I was done. So I cooked up some dinner, hung out there for a while. And at some point, I decided that I wasn't going to walk the remaining 2 miles. And I found a spot next to a boulder, and I pulled out my sleeping bag and put it to use. Later that evening, I heard the distinct sound of a car. Little different than the other cars, and I noticed it was also getting brighter. And I opened my eyes and I saw 2 headlights coming directly at me. Before I set down my sleeping bag, I walked this entire area. I went looking for the safest spot. And the only place further away from the road had me in danger of falling into a canyon. And there's this big rock. Like, who's going to drive their car into this big rock? And that car turned itself back onto the road. It was coming right at me. I flipped over, and it just, I think it saw me. I don't know what it was doing. I have no idea, but for the rest of the night, anytime I heard a car, my adrenaline was pumping. So a few hours later, I packed up all my stuff, and I just kept walking. It was the middle of the night. It was dark. There was no place to camp for the next few miles. It was a canyon, so on one side it went straight up, on the other side it went straight down. There were a few spots, but they were all blocked off, inaccessible. Finally, about 2 miles later, I found this road. And if I had gone a little further, I could have gotten to the campsite, but I was done. This little road, it was fenced off, safe enough to set up a sleeping bag, and I did so. The next morning is where I ran into the real danger. Ever since I was in elementary school, we were taught you walk against traffic. You walk against traffic because you want to see the stuff coming at you, and you want to be far away from the stuff that's coming up from behind you. And I got pulled over. First time on my trip where a highway patrol officer pulled me over and instructed me that I needed to walk with traffic. I asked, is it because I have a cart? He's like, nope, everybody needs to go with traffic. I'm pretty sure he was wrong, but he was kind of circling the area all day, so I didn't think I had a choice. And I spent the rest of the day walking with traffic. And it's the only time in my walk that I was legitimately concerned of being in danger. I can think of one particular moment where the cars behind me, several cars behind me, slammed on their brakes. I didn't see it because it was behind me, but I knew I just turned a corner and those cars turned that corner too, and there I was. Now, thank goodness I had fixed my brakes and their brakes were working. It was downhill, so I was holding on to those things all day. I made it to Miami. There's a Miami, Arizona, top of the world, nice little place as well. Made it to Globe, Arizona, where I bought myself a safety vest.
I just wanted to point out that I am wearing my fancy vest.
So I stayed a few nights in Globe. At Holiday Inn Express had a pancake machine. I spent another night at the Apache Gold Casino Resort. I got $35 in promotional credits, and I got to keep 24. I then started the next 70 miles through the San Carlos Reservation, and a few days prior to this, first let me preface that everybody I met was super friendly, super generous, kind, helpful, but a few days prior, somebody just put the notion in my head that I should be cautious walking through this area, and I thought, oh, he's talking about a neighborhood. I think he was talking about the entire next 70 miles. So I had that kind of going through my head, and I got to Marriott, and somebody there, again, helpful, recommended that I, instead of setting up a camp in some random spot, set it up at the Dispatch, which was a spot where a lot of bicyclists stayed. Super helpful, super thankful for that. The next night, I made it to a rest stop in the town of Bylaws, and I thought it was kind of beat up, had some broken windows, had some graffiti. I thought this would be perfectly fine, even though there's a no camping sign. Perfectly fine, unless there's a bunch of hoodlums that hang out here in the middle of the night. And it turns out that there was. I met this guy. He just happened to be passing by, and when we got to chatting, he was more and more concerned about me staying there. He also mentioned these knives, that these hoodlums. He mentioned that there were some youth that kind of used this spot to kind of hang out in the middle of the night, and not always on their best behavior. And he mentioned these knives that they would carry. And I don't know if these were the knives he was talking about, but previously, a few weeks earlier, in California, I wandered into a city park, into a restroom, and there encountered a man with a knife strapped to his side. And the conversation was kind of awkward. First, because I was at a urinal, and that's not normally talking time for me. Second, because this guy that did not understand bathroom protocol also had this 14-inch decorative knife strapped to his hip. I might not have washed my hands. I used some hand sanitizer back at the cart, and I don't know if this was the type of knife they were referring to, but this was what was in my mind when I accepted the invitation to go back to his cabin and sleep on a trampoline outside. He said there were some dogs, they'd make any noise if anybody came around, and sure enough, anytime those dogs barked, once again, the adrenaline was pumping. I was perfectly fine, yet the notion was in my head. My buddy left at 5 a.m. I got up and left about the same time. I walked 30 miles to Stafford, Arizona, and I think that kind of catches us up. I guess the point I wanted to make was these few days were kind of fun. They were the most scenic, but they were also the most worrisome. The only time, for good and not real reasons, that I was worried about my safety, whether it be the traffic or any harm that might have become me staying at random rest stops in the middle of the night. I couldn't capture those things on video. Had I known they would have been this exciting, I would have had a camera running the whole time. But I thought I just needed to go in and tell those stories just a little bit differently, because I think they reflect that experience just a little bit more. Always walk against traffic. So I probably got a few minutes before my camera runs out of power. I'm currently in Provo, Utah. I'm staying with my sister. I would love to be back on the road. I was planning to be back on the road right now, except there's this global pandemic going on, and I can't decide if this is a good form of social distancing or not. I spent most of my time on the road completely isolated. I don't run into anybody. If something were to go wrong, if I were to get sick, I think I'd be in a bad spot. Just not having anybody to go, not having any place to go, not knowing anybody in the area. And the next section of my journey is Louisiana and Florida. A little bit through Alabama, a little bit through Mississippi. But, by golly, those are supposed to be the hot spots. So, I'm torn. Please let me know if I said I was going, what would be your recommendation? Should I go? Should I not? Again, great form of social isolation. I don't know if it's safe though. Best of luck. One of the things I am doing is I am using DoorDash. I don't know if you guys have found this, but they deliver food. If you use my promo code, they will give you a discount. Yeah, $5 off your first 3 orders. It's like $15 of free food. You might be ordering food anyways, and if you aren't, it might be a good opportunity just to, support the local economy. A lot of stuff is shut down. Just to keep some money circulating might be a good way. DoorDash is a good way to make that happen, keep you safe inside. I'm using it as I edit videos because I just don't like stopping to eat. So if I have somebody to bring me something, I can be more productive. Best of luck. I hope everyone's doing well, and hopefully I'll be back on the road soon.